everyone. As we all know, this past year has been incredibly difficult in a myriad of ways, from the disease itself to the shutting down of the world, and now the scrambling to get the vaccine, and from there, working to return to a semblance of normal. It's no joke that this whole experience has impacted all of us, and today I want to go deeper into that and ask how has this pandemic affected a young college creative when this is exactly the time when they're supposed to be out experiencing the world. And to do that, I am joined by my good friend Nick Susa, a current English major at UT Austin, over video call. Hi, Nick, how are you?
Hey Alex, I'm doing good. How are you?
Very good. I am here today to ask you a few questions because, as you know, and as all of us know, this whole experience has been really hard. And I'm sure you probably know how it is.
I do know how it is.
Yeah, exactly. So today I just wanted to know, where were you when the pandemic first began, and like what were your initial thoughts? Because this is something unprecedented. This is the first thing in 100 years that we've had to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. When the pandemic first began in China, I was just a normal college student. I wasn't too worried about it. I learned about it through Twitter. And I was just kind of not focusing on that. I had exams and stuff, so I was like, okay, that's over there. Um, the first day that it came to me, I was actually studying for an exam. I had a test the next day, and so I had stayed up until 4 a.m. And the next morning, I woke up and I was getting ready to go to class, and I got an email from the school saying that all classes were canceled and spring break was beginning early. And so I was very relieved because I was not ready, or not as ready as I wanted to be. But it was definitely concerning and interesting to be there, because it was that mix of emotions of relief because I didn't have that exam that day,
Mm-hmm.
and panic because the pandemic is here.
Yeah, you're so relieved that you don't have to do that, but then the deeper connotation of, oh, wait, there's a bit of a thing going on. So from there, what was the next thing you did? Like, you live with two other people, right? At the time, you were
Yeah,
living with two other
two other
people.
roommates.
So, I believe you told me when this all happened that you buckled down. How well do you think you and those two people adapted? Because there's a big difference between living with two people during just normal college life and then living with two people during a pandemic going on.
Yeah. So we had done a little bit of prep towards the the closer appearance of the disease,
Mm.
the virus, but we didn't have very many supplies stocked up. And considering that it was spring break, um, two of us had already planned to go home,
Mm.
and there was minimal risk at the time, so we decided to go there. Um, One of my roommates did stay in Austin, and she did her best to deal with things. She got through it. Um, but the other two of us, we went back to our hometowns and we stayed with our families for most of it and just got used to being at home and doing school through Zoom.
So, like, what month? Because the pandemic fully hit the United States in March of last year. What month did you come home? And then, and by home I mean down back to Dallas and Fort Worth, Grand Prairie. What month did you come back home, and then how long did you stay down here?
Right. So I went down back to the Dallas area in March, and I stayed until October,
Mm.
and then I returned to Austin.
And you had to adjust to all new, like, basically a new learning style. Because before then, all
Yeah.
of your classes were at the school, right?
Hmm.
And then you had to, and then adjusting. How was adjusting to online classes down here, where I'm pretty sure you were buckled down with your family at that point? What was that experience like?
Classes kind of became my second priority,
Mm.
um, just because there were other things going on. I mean, obviously, like we're dealing with the pandemic. There's going to be things that are happening, especially towards the beginning, and so it just kind of became my second priority, and I did what I had to get through my classes, and I showed up for my classes, but I wasn't going the extra mile and like studying as in depth as I probably would be if classes had continued in person.
Mm-hmm. You were. It wasn't like. It wasn't the first thing that you thought of when you got up in the morning and everything like that.
Exactly.
It didn't. There's a very big difference. I'm sure you can relate to this. There's a very big difference between going to school for the pleasure of it, like before pandemic, and then going to school for the necessity of it, just for a sense of
Hmm.
normalcy, like during this
Yeah.
pandemic. You know. As we see more and more people getting the vaccine, you've heard. I'm sure you've heard of the vaccine. It's been all over as soon as they started developing it. Oh, what? Maybe 2 months into the no, as soon as the pandemic hit, they started developing it. Well, we have now three different types of vaccines. More people are getting them. Are and it's available to everyone over 16. Are you planning to get it? And like, are you going to recommend it to your friends to get it and everything?
Yeah, so I actually just got my first dose.
Oh, what
I'm
what
very excited about that.
which
Huh?
vaccine did you get?
Yeah, so I got the Pfizer vaccine.
Hey, Pfizer
Um,
buddies.
yes, so very exciting. um, but I highly recommend that everyone who is eligible go get it because it is just going to help everybody out, and it's free even if you don't have insurance, so it's accessible to probably more people than it's probably more accessible to people who don't know that it's accessible to.
Yeah, did where did you sign up for it?
So UT was distributing them, so I was able to sign up through my university and
Mm,
get it through the school.
that's very nice. So you're a college student and you're an English major, which means obviously you're going to become a writer, so you have to be creative in some sense. Did you find yourself becoming more or less creative during the pandemic? Like, did it affect the tone of your works in any way? And stuff, because I know you have to do creative works for class because that's what you're studying for. Did it? Could you tell that your works were changing because of the way you had to deal with the pandemic?
Yes, I could. So I tended to write a lot of happier things. That's what I like to write because I think that's important. But towards the beginning of this semester, this half of the pandemic, I got Zoom fatigue really bad,
Mm.
and I started writing things that were just kind of wild and out there and a little bit more grotesque because it put me back in like a normal mindset. It was like, you overcompensate to
Yeah,
get back to normal.
you go to the
So I'm on
extremes to get
Zoom.
yourself. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you what kind of lasting effects on your own creative works do you think this pandemic is going to have? Like, has this whole thing made you think about changing career paths?
That's a good question. No, so pre-pandemic, I wanted to be a writer, and I still want to be a writer. I think if it were a different career, I would maybe have reconsidered. But I think I've definitely learned being a writer in this pandemic because there's a difference between like have being inspired in a pandemic
Mm.
and actually writing. And it's definitely a lot harder to sit down and focus on writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've learned to push through that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. I very much so understand that. Just being creative in general during such an extreme situation, it just feels. It's so weird to say this, but it feels like you're not focusing on the right thing. Yeah,
There's like a whole problems of the world.
yeah.
You're sitting there writing
It,
about whatever it is whatever it is you can think of at the time.
yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad you could be here. I love these talks. Any final words you'd like to say to our fellow creatives who are all still going through this pandemic?
Yeah. So first, thank you for having me. But everyone, just hang in there. We'll get through it eventually. Please go get vaccinated if you're eligible.
Mm-hmm.
It's super important. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you again.
You are very welcome, and yeah, I'm so glad we got to do this today, and yeah.